How you doing in quarantine?
Thriving and surviving, it's been great hanging out with my kids, even though they've been incredibly isolated and lonely, and it's not natural. But I've been creative, man. Because I'm not distracted by any projects. I'm writing like a maniac.
That's what I'm talking to a lot of people, the creativity that's happening. It's going to be so fascinating to see once we're through this.
Right. When it's unleashed. All at the same time. under Black Lives Matter, under this madness of this presidency, under Corona and this topsy-turvy Alice in Wonderland BS that we're living. It just makes your mind, like you have to work to be creative to get it all in place. Otherwise you lose your mind.
Yeah, it's like, where do you even begin? Where do you start? Do you start with Black Lives Matter? Do you start with Corona? Do you start with the guy who's in the White House? It's unreal.
Yeah. Great things. Black Lives Matter to me is one of the great outcomes of this presidency and Corona, because we all had the time to focus and we all had the time to protest, so that was beautiful because it finally added up to something and people requesting action and, defunding the police, which doesn't mean defund the police. It just means that they should be accountable and that some of that money should go to underserved community, brown and black communities.
Are you hopeful for the future? Or are you hopeful about the election?
I'm a Latin man, so I'm always hopeful because the world's always been against me. So I got used to fabricating my own hope.
You know what? It's my husband is Mexican and he's very much the same way. He's like, listen, I've survived a lot worse than that. Just fine.
It's so true. It's like, you grow up being told the worst things in the world about yourself as a child, as a man, as a community. And you go, but the people I know aren't like that. So somewhere there's something wrong. So I need to figure out how I'm going to survive all this microaggressions and macroaggressions.
Right.
They also can be very, in your face, literally. And you got to survive. So yeah. So I stay hopeful no matter what. And I tell my friends to start losing hope. I go, dude, you got to build hope because hope is the only thing that sustains us. And you got to manufacture it, fabricate it, whatever you got to do, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What do we have left? 69 days? Something like that? 70 days?
Oh, I heard your queens. 69 days. 69. That's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's because I'm talking. It's because I'm talking to you. That's why.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
hey now. I have a real accent. My accent, you can't be detected. You can't tell if I'm from North, West, South London.
So, directorial debut.
Woohoo!
I have to tell you, when your reps came to me, I was like, that's John's first movie that he directed?
I directed a movie for HBO.
A TV, yes, you did do a TV
movie. I
movie.
Of commercials, trying to figure out how to be a director and can I tell a visual story? I know I can tell a verbal story and a written story. It's just, can I tell a visual story? It doesn't matter how rich or poor you are, what Ivy League school you may go or may not go to, because chess is the great equalizer. It spoke to me. I am that kid. I am that ghetto nerd. These kids that don't have a place that they fit in. They don't fit in. And, these kids, this is a true story of 5 kids, mostly Latinx and Black, who grew up in Overtown. Back then it was called Liberty City. And it was it's the roughest neighborhood in Miami. And they became United States chess champions. And there were these kids who didn't want to go the wrong route, didn't really want to play football, but there was no space for them, And then this teacher, Mario Martinez, created this after-school elective for chess. And these kids found themselves. And I was that ghetto nerd kid that, I didn't really fit in. I loved to read. And, that's not what was up in the hood. And there were other kids like me, but I couldn't really find them. And then when I found them, they weren't cool enough for me. So nice. Therein lies the trick. But yeah, this movie just summoned me, called me.
How did you hear about the story first and go after it? Did someone come to you? How did it all sort of come about?
Well, it came to me. Yeah, it was lucky. They offered it to me as the lead to be in it. And then they asked me to direct it. And I was like, wow, I kind of wanted to direct it. I feel like this one I could do. But plus also I'm not it's more of a team. It's a supporting cast that's really the lead. I'm not really the lead. So I have a little more time off camera to help, set up scenes and stuff like that.
How great is it to work with young people, to see to just sort of mentor them along? And I'm sure some of them reminded yourself of you when you were starting out. How great was that?
It was beautiful, man. I have 2 kids. So, once you have kids, you just feel like every kid's your own. And it was easy, to love these kids. They were all giving 100%. I demanded a lot, and they delivered. And that made me love them even more. It was hard to pick them, too, because the Latinx talent out there is so massive, and everybody's so great. It was hard to pick. So I just picked the guys that fit the characters the best. So that way it'd be easier for all of us, because it was a demanding schedule, an independent film about chess, and I wanted the chess to be a sport. So I wanted to open up these scenes and make them big. So, we had very little time to rehearse on camera or rehearse right before a take. I needed to do that weeks before.
Well, what's great about it is I don't know how to play chess, but you directed it in such a way you didn't need to. You felt the tension, like it just, like I couldn't, even my husband was like, "What are they doing with the clock things?" I'm like, "I think they can't run out of time or something," but it didn't matter.
It was great. You know why? You know why? Because my theory was, if I can walk you through what a teacher does, like in the class, the exact teachings. It can be long and boring, but the effect is you really think as a viewer that you know what's going on with the moves. You start to believe that you understand. And then when you see that last sequence with the 60 actual moves that Marcel Martinez played against Akopian, you think you're following it really clearly, but it's sort of a trick that happens.
Yeah, it's pretty. You did it really, really well, because we sat there and we're like, "Is he gonna what's happening?" And it was really, the rhythm was really great. What's amazing too is, I was thinking about the movie. I'm like, "Oh, it's so perfect for these times, Latinx representation, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, this has been going on forever. It's not. The movie wasn't made for now. The world may be waking up to the Latinx experience more, but this is a story that, like you said, you were that kid, you were that nerd."
Yeah. It's like we're the oldest ethnic group in America after Native Americans. We didn't just get here, fought in the American Revolution, 10,000 Latino patriots. We had a Latin general in the American Revolution War, Galvez, who organized an army of 3,000 Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Mexican Americans, freed slaves, and Native Americans, and they kicked the British out of the South so that they couldn't surround the Patriots in the North. And I'm not talking about the New England Patriots. I'm talking about the old school Patriots. And 20,000 was fought in the Civil War. 120,000 fought in World War I, with incredible amounts of heroes. But you never see this. You never see it in movies, in our textbooks, in our literature. We're not taught our own writers. We're not taught our own history. So you always feel like an outsider, even in your own country.
It's pretty amazing. Do you feel that sort of in a way you're kind of ahead of the times, because you've been talking about Latinx representation for, since the day one of your career?
Yeah,
do you feel like the world is sort of catching up in a way?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. They're trying to make amends. We're 25% of the box office, U.S. box office.
Yep.
We're the largest ethnic group in America, but with less than 4% of the faces in front of the camera, and less than 3% of the crew behind the camera, and less than 1% of the stories being told. And forget about executives. It's like 0.0 something. And that's not okay. When you're 50% of the population of Los Angeles, that's cultural apartheid. When you're equal to whites in New York, and you're not on the staffs of the New York Times, the New York Post, we're equal to whites in population in New York City. Why aren't our stories equal? Even though the obituary, you look at it, maybe that's good because we're not dying, but none of the people that I grew up with that are my heroes are there ever.
Mm.
And that's the weird thing. It's like we're invisible.
But what you're saying now is you've been talking about this for years, and now there's this conversation that's going on, whether it's Black Lives Matter, starting with the immigration. I don't want to even call it a debate. I keep thinking. I really was thinking about you. I'm like, you've been like screaming this, whether it's in your art or how you're doing it now. And there has to be some sort of, I don't know, feeling of like, hey, I've been saying this. Where you been?
Oh, yeah. No, I've been saying it forever. And you can't stop yelling. And you can't stop. You got to keep going and being annoying about it. And I am, I can't help it. It's in my blood. It's what I see and experience all the time. And I can't stop being a Latin person. I mean, that's who I am. And when I see myself not represented, it bothers me and it hurts me, and so I'll keep shouting and hopefully things will change. I mean, we definitely see improvements. I mean, 4% is better than 0%, even though it's been a decade of 4%.
What kept you, I guess, motivated to just keep saying it, keep being outspoken? Because I imagine there are other people who wanted to be, and they were just like, you know what, it's not my fight.
Yeah, but I find little successes, and they bolster me. It's like it's like water trickling down into a river. It just finds its path, and every little success keeps me going towards the bigger Mississippi, and instead of the tributaries. And that's what I've been doing. I found theater. Actually, there aren't real gatekeepers there. So if you create a work and you can raise the money, you got an opportunity to be on Broadway. I don't have to pass somebody's idea of is this worthy? Is this interesting? Because we Latin people succeed where there are no gatekeepers who are judging us on their opinion and their taste. In music, where it scans and you actually have scans, you have metrics. We are number one artist on Spotify is J Balvin. He beat Drake. Top 10 hits, Maluma, Bad Bunny. They're crushing it. Camila Cabello, Cardi B. In sports, where we have stats to measure, we kill. In politics, AOC, where we can count the votes, we win. We have mayors in New Mexico. We have all these 4 women that won in New York City in the midterm elections: Catalina Cruz, Julia Salazar. I can't remember all this, but they won a ton of, because we can measure. But when it's led to somebody's opinion, like an executive, we lose because they don't understand our stories. They don't care. And I've been pitching stories for the last 30 years, and I always get things back like, Latin people don't want to see Latin people. And you're like, what? To my face. And they say, like, Latin people don't want to, with this movie, pitching it to studios, they said to me, Latin people don't want to see, our metrics show that they don't care about feel-good movies. I'm going, what? We just want depressing shit? No. And, you just keep going.
How often I guess you just sort of answered it. My next question was like, how often were you in those pitch meetings and just like banging your head against the wall? Or they're saying like, you know what? It's a great story, but maybe make it a little less Latin. Make it a little, maybe that guy could be a white guy instead. Yeah,
they weren't saying that. I think because that would have been too obvious, or even they would have heard themselves say that out loud. It would have been really wrong. They just said, we love it, but it's not for us. And that's what I got for many years. But, I persisted. And one of the films that I tried to do a long time ago, I'm turning into a musical. Doing theater was what kept me alive. The audience found me. And there were a lot of white people coming there too, and Black and Latin and Asian. And we found each other. And that fed me. That fed me a lot, because I could get to talk to the audience and go, oh my God, this is so great to see myself. I can't believe it. And their sense of pride from it fed me too, bolstered me.
What's this musical you're writing? Tell me about it.
This one is the conquest. It's about the conquest. It's Aztec conquest, and it's a musical. It's kind of like a Spamalot meets Book of Mormon. Really broad, really hilarious, great music, great songs. hilarious as hell, and about conquest and surviving conquest.
What's it called? Is it called The Conquest?
Kiss My Ass Tech.
When are you going to direct your next feature? What's the next one for you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm fielding some offers. I've got some interesting things. I just haven't signed on the dotted line, but I'm hoping to write again real soon.
But also with critical thinking, you not only directed it, you were in it. Was there a part of you that said maybe I shouldn't do both, or you just couldn't imagine being on the set, not being in the acting of it too?
Obviously there's always that question mark. Can I be in it and direct the movie and be successful at both? Because I found in the past it was kind of too difficult if it was a really demanding role. But in this one, I was able to because the character was closer to me, and it was really well written. Dito Montiel is a beast of a storyteller and a writer, and so I had a great script to lean on, and I had all the consultants, I had all the real guys on the set, the teacher and the 5 chess players, and they helped me work the kids through their paces, to make sure that every chess match was the actual match that they played, and they taught it to the kids. So I had a lot of great help.
So do you know how to play chess?
I thought I did, and then I played somebody in Washington Square Park, and they kicked my ass after the first 5 moves. I was like, damn, I thought I could play after all that research and study.
You're like, want to play checkers? Want to play checkers?
I love checkers. The simplicity and stupidness of it is just right up my alley.
I want to talk to you about some of your past stuff, because I have to tell you, Moulin Rouge is my all-time favorite movie.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. I brought the musical back. It'd been dead since 1972. Grease was the last successful musical in Hollywood.
I listen to the music when I'm at the gym. Every time I think about it, it just blows my mind. It was the first Cannes Film Festival I ever went to.
Wow.
That's connected to it.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest Cannes Film Festival premieres you've ever seen. I mean, Fox put so much money into that. It was incredible.
I remember. What do you remember most about filming Moulin Rouge?
It was excruciating. It was really difficult to be.
Why was that?
Baz was at the height of his game, and he was very demanding, which was incredibly challenging and beautiful, but exhausting. I mean, we had over almost 2 months rehearsal. Before we started, we would do readings every Friday. The script started around 300 pages. I'm not kidding. So it was like a 4-hour read. Then they shrunk it down to about 180 or something like that before we started shooting. And we had to learn, how to dance, how to sing, working on the British accent that I had. And then the shooting was really intense. It was almost 8 months.
Wow.
Longest shoot I've ever been a part of.
Wow. That's incredible. Let's talk about Spawn, another movie before its time, huh?
Oh, yeah. First Black superhero.
And again, catching up. You're involved with something that the world had to catch up to.
Yeah, because Todd McFarlane is a beast, man. I love that guy. And Spawn was his creation. This dead man comes back to life, and he's a Black superhero come back to deal with humanity. And Todd McFarlane, the comic book industry, believe it or not, was a dying industry in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And single-handedly, Todd McFarlane brought it back from extinction because he made it edgier. He made it nastier. He put vulgarity. He put sex into it. He put all the things that were missing in comic books. It was all too clean and too sweet, and nobody was buying it. It was a different time, It was comic books from a different era, and he single-handedly brought it back. And then I had the chance to be Clown, which was a huge deal in the 90s, especially a Latin guy. Like, obviously, I was hidden behind prosthetics, so you didn't know I was Latin, but you could feel me.
Did you ever think when you were making that movie, the release of that movie, that one day there would be a Black Panther? A movie just...
when we were shooting it, I thought, oh my God, this is going to blow the fuck up. And it kind of did, semi, a little explosion, a little... and then I thought, oh, what happened? Did people aren't digging Black superheroes? I don't know what happened. But anyway, I'm so glad Black Panther happened because I cried in that movie. I don't know. I was so moved by just seeing this world. The world was so touching to me.
Mm. When are we going to see Latinx superhero movie?
I'm writing one. Todd McFarlane is publishing it for me on Image Comics, which is the third largest comic book after DC and Marvel. And it's called Phenom X and the Uncontrollables. Comes out in October, November.
What? So you're doing it. So when's it going to be turned into a movie?
Let's hope right after it comes out.
I've
tried. Yeah.
What inspired you to do it?
So what?
What inspired you to do it?
Well, obviously the lack of Latinx representation in the superhero world. So I wanted to create my own superhero from my own standards, and it's not an easy paradigm to crack. I mean, comic books is so difficult, man, because almost everything's been done, and how do you reinvent it and make it your own? It's tricky. It's really tricky. It's taken me a couple of years.
Tu Wong Fu, what do you remember most?
Oh, Tu Wong Fu. Oh my God, the amount of makeup hours. That's the plucking, the tucking, the gaffer's tape to make yourself look like you have breastises. There was a lot. I mean, all of a sudden I had mad respect for women because I was like, wow, this is rough.
Do you think if the movie was made today, 3 straight men would be playing the starring roles?
Well, I hope not. I mean, I hope you're involved in that. I mean, I hope it's time that we can see actual real trans people in real trans roles. I mean, obviously it should be that any actor can play anything, but it's not really fair. It doesn't really work that way. White people should be able to play Latin people, Latin people should be able to play white people, but it doesn't really work that way. It's more usually just white males can play anything and everybody else can't. That's kind of how it's been all these decades. But I hope trans women get to play trans women, or transgender people can play transgender people. That at least give them those roles for now.
I mean, Tu Wong Fu, that was, again, I'm going back to like before, the world is catching up.
I got more legs than a bucket of chicken. Oh, yeah, you know how. That's the look, mama. Larissa Dumont was my drag queen tutor and coach.
Really?
Yeah, and she helped me out a lot, and I borrowed a lot of lines from her. And she gave me the attitude, and she gave me the voice. It was incredible.
Maybe they should do a reboot of Tu Wong Fu and get some real drag queens in there.
Oh, imagine that. Would put us to shame. Lady Bunny. Candace Jane.
Oh, you are New York. You are New York. And then The Power. When will that even be shot?
Well, they started shooting pre-COVID in January, and then March came, and boom, I was supposed to start shooting till August, shut down.
Wow.
Then about a month ago, I signed a COVID contract, that I would quarantine and that I would leave the set, that I would stay in the hotel, yada, yada, yada. And now they're saying maybe November, and they're going to change. I was supposed to shoot in Canada. Now I'm going to shoot in London.
Right. So you have to go to London and quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yep. And then test every day, and then, wear a mask, and then, separate and do all that distance.
This is just wild.
It's crazy. It's crazy. My friend Ethan is shooting in Ireland right now. Ethan Hawke, the great actor. And he's saying it's so weird. He doesn't even know what his DP really looks like because all he sees is this. He doesn't. He wouldn't recognize him outside of his mask.
Well, the other thing is you don't know if your director's happy or not with what you're doing because they're covered. They're not smiling.
Can't even understand mask talk. I mean, you have to repeat things 40 times. Like, what do you want to have for dinner? You want to have that or the other thing?
Well, I even when I'm walking on the street and you sort of nod to someone, I'm like, why don't they smile? I'm like, I don't know if they smile.
Yeah, right.
They got a mask.
You can't really tough in the eyes and smile.
No. Oh man,
mask culture.
It's a crazy world.
But I'm not a mask hole. I wear my mask. Mask holes are people who wear their mask like over here or like underneath the nose. Yeah.
And then it's a matter of, do you say something to someone? I'm online at the supermarket and they got it under their nose. I'm like, the person could be completely nuts.
I stand further back.
That's what I do.
That's my protest.
How do you think New York is doing in all of this? How do you think they did?
I mean, we had the worst experience at the beginning, because we were the most crowded city, and My dog is acting up.
Don't worry.
All right. As long as you don't mind.
No.
Cool. Yeah. So, we experienced the biggest spikes and we were the first people testing out all these techniques, the distancing, the sheltering in place, the intubating, all that. And obviously, luckily people learned from us and did better. But we set the standard and now we're doing great. I mean, there was a couple of days with no deaths and plummeting infections. It's pretty great. I mean, up here, upstate New York, you can go inside restaurants as long as it's less than 35%, I think it is.
So when are you going to run for office?
I'm not going to run for office. I want to help lots of people run for office. I helped Andrew Yang, then I was Bernie, now I'm Joe Biden. And my mom helped AOC stomp in Queens. So yeah, I'm going to continue helping whoever I respect and I think is important, and that's, I think, my best contribution.
And you're hopeful that Joe is going to win.
Yeah, I know we got Russian interference, as we saw in that bipartisan Senate investigation. They tampered with 2016. They're going to mess with our elections. But I mean, the polls, I think, are true. The polls are true. But, if Russia tricks it up in the voting machines and just lets Trump win by a certain number so that they don't recount, but not too little. It's just the perfect number that Russia can cheat on it. And purging voter rolls and all that. I mean, there's so much dastardly work at hand not to let us have a democracy. It's unbelievable. Because he can't win legitimately. He can't win on a normal basis. He has to take away our mailing boxes, the sorters. They have to reduce all the voting polls, so people have to stand in line for like 3 days. But I love what Michelle Obama said at the DNC: bring a lunch, pack a lunch, bring a picnic table, bring a bed, a cot. It's going to be a couple of days.
And you must have run into Donald Trump back in the day. I mean,
oh yeah,
he was going to all those events, every premiere that he could go to.
He was always at the club parties, hanging out in the front, hitting up on every young hottie that walked in. He was always scouting for talent, as they used to say back in the day.
Could you ever imagine that the man who was scouting for talent would be president?
Never, because we knew him in New York. We knew he was a clown. That's the thing. Nobody knew about him like New Yorkers did. We knew he was fake. We knew he wasn't really wealthy or rich. Who goes on to do a TV show if you're really a billionaire? You're not going to be working for minimum wage, basically. Who does that if you're really rich? We knew the real deal. But the rest of America believed that TV show, and they believed that he was filthy rich, and he wasn't.